I did 24 closings from
Wow.
June to December. And then 2019, I did like, I think it was like 57 units. And then 2020, I did like 68 units. And then I did 75 units. So, and I was doing all of that by myself.
Welcome to Coffee with Closers. In this series, we interview top real estate producers that are out there making big things happen in the real estate industry. That way you can learn from their failures and their big wins so you can start winning more in your real estate business. Sara, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, of course. So, Sara, why don't you tell the guests a little bit about you, your backstory in real estate, and how you got into this to begin with?
Sure. I actually don't even know how I got into real estate, to be honest. I was young. I was in college and I was commuting to school and I was living at home and I've always been like a worker bee. And I was like working in a daycare and kind of going to school, but not really sure what I wanted to do. So I was like, well, maybe I'll go for like early childhood education, or maybe I'll go. There's a lot of teachers in my family. So I was like, well, maybe I'm supposed to be a teacher. And I started going to school for that. And I was like, this is just not for me. I was working in a daycare. I saw it going downhill like real fast and a lot of drama and things like that. So I don't know. I just quit one day and I went home and I said, Mom, I quit my job. And she's like, what do you mean you quit your job? And I was like, don't worry about it. I'll figure it out. And then the next day I walked into a Remax office, like maybe 10 minutes from my house, and was looking for like admin work or like secretarial work so that I could at least pay the bills and then learn about the business in the meantime. And I walked in and this lady was sitting there and she said, oh, did you see our ad in the paper? And I said, no, I just walked in. And they pretty much hired me on the spot. And that's kind of how I got into real estate in the very beginning. So I started as like an admin and I would work there answering the phones, setting up appointments for agents, learning the MLS, doing all of that kind of like back end stuff while also going to school.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you got into the office, you were kind of doing some admin work, and then what motivated you to actually become a realtor after all that?
I think I knew, because I knew the business so well from the back end of it. I saw, obviously I saw the money that they made, but also the hustle that it takes. And like I said, I've always been kind of a worker bee. And I was like, all right, like I think I can do this. So I said, all right, I'm going to go get my license. So I went through the classes, did the whole thing. This was back in 2009. And everybody told me I was nuts because they're like, you're getting into the market now? Like, this market is crazy. Like, I can't believe you're going to start your, real estate sales in this, short sale foreclosure flooded market. And I said, well, if I can make it in this market, I can make it in any market. So I just bit the bullet and got my license and started selling.
Wow. How was that process? Did it take you a while to pass your test, or was it
I
pretty
passed
quick?
on the first try, which is
Wow.
interesting because I've always been kind of like a C student. I'm not a good test taker. But I passed on the first try. So I was like, all right, I think I could do okay.
That's really good. Usually people fail one section and then pass the other, but you passed
Yeah.
both at the same time. That's really
Yep.
awesome. That's great.
Yep. Yep.
So, what were your like initial steps into the industry? Like when say the first day you got licensed or the first 30 days, how did that feel? Like, did you just go in the office, you felt confused, or did you have more of a mentor situation?
I didn't have a mentor situation, but I really, because I had so much experience with the back end of everything, I knew the MLS, I knew how to operate all of the showing time and, all of that stuff. So for me, like that was the easy stuff. And it was really just building a client base. So when I first got my license, I actually went to different agents in the office that I knew were top producers. And I was like, hey, like, how do you get business? And it was like, go through your phone and call every single person in your contact list and let them know what you're doing and, get your name out there. So that's what I did. And I was afraid to make phone calls and do all that stuff. And I don't know, I ended up calling somebody that I had gone to college with. We did like a group project together and I was like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I don't know if you remember me, but I got my real estate license. She's like, actually, I need to sell my house. And that's how I really got my really first listing, which ultimately there's a lot more to it. It was ended up being a short sale, and it was a divorce. It was like a really complicated situation, but it gave me a good amount of experience to get a home on the market, put it, get the listing done, pictures, all that kind of stuff. Um, and then I ended up taking another listing and I overpriced it by like $300,000 because I didn't know any better. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. They want to price it at this price. So I took it. And it ultimately ended up expiring, of course, but you live and learn. So, you gotta take a couple L's before you can win.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. So it sounds like you found success pretty early by calling your sphere of influence, right? I mean, you got a listing pretty quick.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
huge. That is really good. Now, like your first year in real estate, like what did that look like totally? Was it kind of a slog or did things kind of continue to flow in that direction where you're getting listings and getting a stable income, or was it really like a grind to get off the ground?
So I actually worked real estate kind of part-time at that moment. Like I, have always been kind of independent, and I, have my own, finances and my own, I always had my own car payment. I paid my own insurance, my phone bill, all that kind of stuff as a young, college kid. Um, but I got a lot of my business through like friends of mine because at that time it was when they were offering this $8,000 first time buyer tax credit. So it was through this like foreclosure market, but to try to, it's complete opposite of what we have now. Whereas we were trying to get buyers to buy houses. So the way that they did that, the government implemented this $8,000 tax credit for home buyers that were first time buyers. So it really incentivized people to buy houses. And so because I was in school still and, I had a lot of friends and stuff like that, I would just kind of go through everybody that I knew in school, and those people were buying houses.
That makes total sense. That's a tough time to start. I mean, it's similar to today. I mean, I don't think it's the same thing because, like you said, it's foreclosures. People weren't really buying houses, but even now, it's hyper competitive. The market's a little saturated, in my opinion, and there's not much inventory. So people are
Right.
fighting over all the same deals. So, what would you tell someone today that is trying to start? Like, should they go part time or should they stay more like full time and just burn the boats?
Um, I mean, I did not have the courage to burn the boats at first. From 2009 to 2013, I worked part-time. I did, like I said, the admin work, that kind of stuff. And then agents started to get a little mad that I was licensed and also answering the phones. So I kind of had to push my way out of that position. And I ended up actually becoming a nanny for a family that was close by. And they were very flexible. They allowed me to take her places. So like I would just load her up in the car seat and we'd go on home inspections and we'd go to, showings and stuff like that. So that actually worked really well for me because I was able to have that flexibility at the same time of making another income. So I did that till 2013. So I'm just going to say do what you're comfortable with because, I had a lot of credit card debt. I'll tell you more about my background later, but it's kind of like I knew I had to make a steady income to pay my bills, right? And so I had to do that from that moment, unfortunately.
That makes total sense. Now, fast forward to today, like what's your current business look like? Like how many closings do you handle per year? What's your sales volume? I'm assuming you're full-time now, like
Yeah,
all those
I'm
kind of
full
things.
time now. Yes, this is
Yeah.
all I do now. So this year, well, let's back up a little bit. So from 20, I actually went full time in 2018. So 2018, I ended up going full time in June. I think it was like right halfway through the year. So June, I did 24 closings from
Wow.
June to December. And then 2019, I did like I think it was like 57 units. And then 2020, I did like 68 units. And then I did 75 units. So, and I was doing all of that by myself. Now, I'm not saying that that's like an easy task because I had very little help. I had like an admin that did some stuff and kind of kept me on target. But other than that, like I would doing 75 deals a year is literal burnout. So, I was pushing myself through it because I had no choice. And then I've kind of last year was probably like my worst year. Last year I was down about 40% from the year before. And it had a lot to do with, I was trying to grow a team and then I dissolved my team and, I was putting a lot of time and effort and energy towards that. So there was a lot more to it than just me not selling things, but also the market conditions obviously made it an impact. And then this year I'm on par to do about like 40 units
That's
this
fantastic.
year by myself, and I'm probably at like 10 or $12 million this year.
That's great. That is
Yeah.
really good. So tell me a little bit more about that. I definitely got to unpack that part a little bit because everybody's kind of going in the direction of teams. And it sounds like you got to the point where you were literally killing it. I mean, 70 plus deals a year is huge. I mean, that's like the top 1% of agents, solo
Yeah.
agents, especially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Well,
you,
and that's kind of where I kind of, and I'm in coaching with Tom Ferry. So, we were kind of discussing like, hey, what's the next, step? Like I need to figure out where do I want to drive the bus. And so, I said, all right, let's try a team, right? And I had these agents that were reaching out to me being like, hey, I'm going to get my license. One was my past client and he was like, I'm going to get my license. Can you mentor me? And like, then another girl was like, oh, I bought a house from you. I'm going to get my license. Can you mentor me? And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll give it a go. So we tried the whole team thing. I ended up, I bought an office building in town. I got it all up and ready, running, ready to go. But what I found was for me personally was I love to be in production. And although it's stressful sometimes and it's really frustrating sometimes, that's where my heart is. Like I like to be with the buyers and sellers. I like to be involved in the whole, process and all that kind of thing. And so what I was finding was that year, that was really 2022, end of 22, early 23, I was like, you know what? Like I was starting to see a trend in my business kind of decline. And I was like, I don't know if this is for me because I was dedicating so much time and so much money and so many resources and so much stuff to build the team and grow them that I was neglecting my own business and my own sphere of influence. And people would ask me, are you still selling real estate? And I'm like, that's not good, we can't have that. So I ended up just over time just dissolving the team and some had gone to other companies, some went and became solo agents and that's okay. It's all good. But yeah, so now I'm back to my solo agent self and I actually just hired a transaction coordinator because you can't do it all by yourself. And so yeah, so this year now I'm back up and running to my normal numbers.
no, that's really good. And to be honest, not a lot of people talk about it because I know it's the new, well, not even the new shiny thing, but it's a shiny object in real estate. Everybody wants to build a team. I built a team, all that kind of stuff, but it's not as profitable as people think.
Right.
When you crunch the numbers on a P&L compared to being a solo agent, I mean, the numbers don't really work that well.
Yeah, and then, that's the other thing is like, just full transparency. Like we would have conversations with the team agents and they'd be like, well, we're paying you all this money. And I'm like, but I'm really making nothing. Like it's not that, like I get it. I see what you see, but the dollars in aren't the dollars out, necessarily. So it's a hard thing to do, especially when you're still trying to produce at the same time.
It's extremely hard. And that's the thing too. It looks like you're taking all this money in on the outside, but the expenses that are behind the door that nobody sees are really chewing away at that. And you really don't end up with much, you know?
Exactly.
Whereas with a solo agent, you're out there doing the thing. I get it. It's a lot of grind, but you're keeping a big percentage of that revenue.
Exactly.
Whereas with a
Exactly.
team, you might see 15% margin, it's small. So
Right. Unless you have really big producers, and in which case it's almost like, you wonder how to structure. And I know you have a team and your team does well. So it's like you either have to have a mega team that's like constantly, producing units or a team where like they're really productive, on the team.
exactly. Or do some kind of a hybrid model where you have people that just work for you. Like you have a showing agent, but you're still involved. You have a ISA that's calling and setting the appointments for you. Like they're just,
Exactly.
you're the main rainmaker. And then you have these like people outside that are support roles. Like I can
Right.
see that working. Um, but yeah, it's definitely tough. So going into that, I mean, those are huge numbers. So like what marketing tactics are you using to attract clients? Are you doing prospecting, emails, open houses, direct mail?
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say back like again, and I'm going from like when I went full time in 2018 till now. When I first came into full-time sales, I literally just relied on my sphere of influence. I got back on social media. I started posting a lot. I was doing videos. I started a little like spin-off from Glenda Baker. She used to do her post from the Porsche. I started this messages from the Mercedes. And so I started to get a little traction on that. And so people would just refer me. And, I had a lot of great reviews. So people would, constantly just be like, oh, well, my friend's moving and whatever, and send my name. So a lot of it was repeat and referral business. I also have done a lot with expireds in the past. I actually just started back up with my expireds this year. I've already closed two deals that were like pretty much double my normal price point. So, I mean,
That's
it's
great.
working. It's just a matter of consistency in doing it. And I started geo farming like 2.5 years ago. So geo farming has been big for me too. I'm up to 10,000 postcards. I was doing them every month. And then, like I said, last year I was kind of down 40% or so. So I kind of scaled back on that a little bit just because the cost was getting expensive to maintain. Um, so then this year I've started doing like more quarterly.
Oh wow, okay. So you're sending direct mail out every quarter
Mhm.
to I'm assuming like a certain set of targeted
Yeah.
houses, right?
Yep. So I actually teach a class in Real Academy every month so on geo farming and how I do it. But yeah, it's like it ends up being 10,000 postcards, 5,000 in my town that I live in, 5,000 in the town next door that I do a lot of business in. And then they constantly see my name in their mailbox, so they know who I am.
That's awesome. Okay. Would you say that's the most effective form of marketing you do, or do you think the social media stuff's more powerful?
I think the social media is actually a little bit more powerful only because it's more warm touches. It's people that kind of know you already. With geo farming, they don't know you. So it's more of a cold appointment, which is always a little bit more difficult to turn, right? But with social media, it's a lot of people I know. And I'm also finding now that like there's people that reach out to me that are like, hey, I see you're in real estate. And they're not people that necessarily like my posts or comment on anything, but they're just coming out of the woodworks being like, oh, yeah, I see you. Like, I'm watching you. And I don't even realize because they're not engaging, but they're watching. And so that's what I think a lot of agents need to realize is like, you're not doing it for nothing. If you get 5 likes, you get 5 likes, but you don't know who else is looking at it.
That's so true. That is so true. Now, with the frequency of that, like how often are you posting content on your social media?
I'm more of a stories girl. I mean, you follow me on Instagram, I'm more of I post to stories all the time. I do post, I need to get better with my posts, to be honest, but my stories are very real, and that's where I think a lot of people resonate. Like, I post my dogs all the time,
Yeah.
two golden retrievers, so they're always, doing wonky things that I'm like, all right, let me post this. I post my, gym stuff, I post my family stuff, so people get to kind of know who you are as a person, not just listed, just sold, just listed, just sold. Like,
Yes.
don't care, like they want to know you're a real human. And I'm sorry, my light is flickering over here. Um, but yeah, it's like people need to know that you're a real person and then they resonate with you, right? I had a girl reach out. She's like, I have a golden retriever too, and we're gonna be ready to buy probably next year. Like, we want you to help us. And so like it's just finding that commonality, but you never know who's watching that is like, wow, I really like that. Or, oh, we have the same kind of dog, or oh, she's an animal lover, or oh, we go to the same gym, or whatever. It doesn't matter, but like people will always look for some sort of commonality.
I can totally see that. It's relatability. I totally can see it. People want to work with people that are kind of similar to them, and they can connect with and trust. And
Yeah,
it's
and
pretty
those deals
effective.
are so much easier.
They
Those deals,
are.
because they trust you and they're like they listen to what you're telling them. So it does make the transaction a little bit easier too.
It's way better. So like it sounds like when you started, it sounds like your marketing strategy kind of has shifted a little bit over time. So you started with SOI, reaching out to your contacts. And then how did it like evolve into what you do now? Did you go through a phase of like prospecting and cold calling, or you skipped that completely and just went directly to
So, I mean,
referral base?
You can ask my coach, Justin. He'll tell you that I am not a cold caller and I will not pick up the phone. I probably shouldn't even be telling you this, but sometimes my phone rings and I just watch it ring because I'm like, I don't want to talk to that person. But yeah, it's kind of like, I kind of skipped a little 5-year window. So from 2013 to 2018, I was a sales trainer for Coldwell Banker. So I was with Coldwell Banker for 12 years and I was their sales trainer. I got, salaried position, health insurance, the whole thing. And at that moment in my life, that was what I needed. And throughout my 5 years of doing that, I realized that all of these things that I'm training agents on or teaching agents how to do, like I'm teaching you to fish. And I can't tell you how many times people would complain and I don't want to do that, or that's not going to work, or that doesn't work. And it's like, I finally got to a point where I was like, you know what? If these people don't want to do it, I'll do it and I'll go make the money, And so I kind of had a good, um, understanding of kind of what needed to be done to get business or new business versus just your sphere of influence. And that was what triggered me in 2018. I was like, you know what? I, it's crazy. I just this stuff is so simple. Like just posting on social media, doing a mailer, whatever, just whatever you're doing, just be consistent. And I also joined Tom Ferry Coaching in 2018 as when I first went full time. I joined coaching right away because I was like, I need somebody to hold me accountable. I need somebody that's gonna, give me new ideas and give me things that implement that I'm good at, right? Because if you don't want to make phone calls, you're not going to make them, right? If you're doing something that you don't want to do, you're not going to do it. I don't care who is around you. Um, and so that's kind of where I went from, I really catapulted myself fully into it in that June of 2018. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do all the things I used to teach and make it happen. And it's funny because I see some of the agents that were in my classes on social media now, and they're all crushing it because the ones that actually did the work and did the things and learned how to fish, those are the people who are now successful.
That's the biggest thing. And I think it's consistency, like you said, and also follow up. I find a lot of agents aren't really good with follow up. Like they'll get someone that might be kind of interested, but they don't follow up. And then 3 months later, they're on the market with somebody else, which
Right.
is really bad. So, talking about your sales process, like once you do the marketing and you attract the person into, say, your sales funnel, for example, into your ecosystem, like what's your strategy and process to actually win them over as a client?
So, especially with buyers, I really have been adamant about a buyer consultation because there are so many intricate pieces in buying a home that especially in this like market that's changing all the time, and it's like I feel like sometimes we wake up and the whole market has changed overnight and you're just like, okay, well this is different now, right? And now we have all these changes coming up in a couple of weeks. So it's just one of those things where it's you have to have that breakdown honest conversation with people. And I go through my whole process with them, so I go from start to finish, like, listen, what are your wants and needs? Let's put you in touch with my lender. Oh, well, I got pre-approved with Bank of America. Well, let me tell you something, every time I've worked with Bank of America, it hasn't been to closing, or it was delayed, or whatever it is. Here's why you should work with my lender, right? Or one of my preferred. I try to give 3 names if I can, just
Yeah.
because, you don't want to be steering. Um, but yeah, and I explained to them that the ease of process is better when you have people who work in like a synergy together, right? So me, my lender, my attorneys, like we all work together so often that we all know each other's processes and expectations and what they're going to handle, what I'm going to handle, what they're going to do, and what I'm going to do. And so I think explaining that to people, a lot of times people just go into it and they're like, oh, well, I'm just going to write an offer and put a deposit down. Like, you ever get buyers that are like, oh, well, I want this house. I'm just going to put a deposit down that'll hold it. Like, no, that's not how this works. And you'd be surprised how many people don't realize all the things that go into it, right? So that's one of the things that I very much am adamant about. I'm not the agent that's going to meet you at a house and, sign something on the freaking hood of a car. Like, that's just not who I am. It's not how I'm going to work. We're going to make an appointment. We're going to go through the whole thing. And then if at the end of that consultation or that meeting, you don't feel that you're comfortable, then I'm not the agent for you, right?
Exactly.
I just did this almost 2 weeks ago. I met with a buyer. She was referred to me from another real agent, and we went through the whole process. She was very like reserved about like the buyer broker and all this stuff. And at the end of the day, I just said, you know what? I don't think we're a good fit to work together because I knew going forward with that person was going to be a struggle, and
Hmm.
she doesn't trust me. So if she doesn't trust me, it's not a good fit for me. And I think that's what a lot of agents also lack, right? They are always like, well, I want the next deal. I want every deal. I want every deal. I want every deal. But like sometimes you do have to be a little selective of who's going to exhaust your time and energy,
You hit it on
and
the head. That's
be
so
okay to
true.
say no, you know?
Yes, that is so, so true. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people have come into the office and they don't even have any idea of what the process looks like. And you sit down and do the consultation and they're mind blown by it. But when I first started 9 years ago, I wasn't doing any of that. I was just taking them to the houses. And then within a year or two, I realized like, hey, this doesn't work. Like a lot of these people are wasting my time. They're not serious. They're not even viewing me as a professional because I didn't sit down and show them any value up front. So
Right.
the next agent that tries to cut me out, I have nothing signed, I have nothing presented. There's nothing there. So they can just leave with somebody else. It's a huge
Exactly.
waste of time.
Yeah.
Huge
And I
waste
think
of time.
that's too where a lot of agents lack, right? Is that they don't do all of this stuff. And then they're like, well, they went and bought with somebody else. But it's like, but what did you do? Like there's a very low accountability for most agents, I would say. And so, well, what did you do to make it so that that person wouldn't want to go anywhere else? And I think part of it is that, there are agents who are unethical and are agents who don't do things the right way. And, well, so and so will just show me the house, and it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I understand that, but if that's your mentality, then go for it, like I'm not here to, waste my time. And also, like, I need to make sure that you're qualified, right?
It's
So,
huge. I mean, it's why waste time? Like, I mean, that's what we're really selling. It's a service business. So we're selling time and our
exactly,
services to people. So if people are going to waste that, I mean, you could just spend that time finding a client that's a better fit, you know?
exactly, exactly.
So what's your process for converting listings? So say somebody from your postcard calls you and says, "Hey, look, I saw your postcard. I'm interested." Like, what's that look like to you?
So this is full transparency. This is like the
Mhm.
brutally honest side, right? Is that, I was getting calls from my geo farm and I wasn't closing the appointments because I had a shitty listing presentation. And so over the last year, I've kind of revamped everything and we've gone off Sharon's listing presentation and all that and learning all of the framework and all that kind of stuff. So we've improved. But before that, I want to say it was like I think I got 5 or 6 listing appointments that first like year and a half of geo farming, and I did not get 5 out of 5 because I was solely trying to win on rapport. And I think that's something that I've learned in the last couple of years is that like you need to have more than rapport. You need to have more than charm to win people over, right? They want to see the facts, they want to see the numbers. And although what I gave them was accurate, like I'll give you a perfect example. There was one around the corner here from where I live. Went and met with her. Her granddaughter was there. Like she loved me. We got along. It was great. Everything was fantastic. Had a cup of coffee with her. Like the granddaughter was like, we love her. Like we want to list with her. And, like a week went by and I followed up with her. And, ultimately it boiled down to, well, I'm going to go with a different agent. And I was like, okay, well, I'm bummed about that, but could you give me some feedback? And she kind of like put the blame on her son, saying like, oh, well, he wanted to use somebody else, whatever. But this particular agent beats me out all the time. And so I finally started to realize what is he doing differently that I'm not bringing to the table. And it's the one thing I hate in this world is numbers. Like I do not like data. I'm not a very analytical person. Like that's just not who I am. So it's uncomfortable, right? And so I have learned that you have to be prepared for all types of people regardless of how I feel. And so the minute I started giving people numbers and actual data and actual talking points about said data, I was able to convert more listing appointments. So I've gotten 3 this year. 2 were expireds, 1 was from GeoFarm this year. So I've, 10x my GeoFarm budget this year, which is great, but
Wow.
it's been a minute to try to like get my processes in order, right? Because what's the point of spending all this money on geofarming if you can't convert the lead when it comes in?
That's so, so true. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk to you about is the agent toolbox. So this is kind of like what tools you use throughout your day, like in your real estate career. So like what are some of the tools that you use daily in your business?
My cell phone.
Cell phone, okay.
My
Right.
cell phone, that's pretty much it. No, I do. I post a lot of social media from my phone, text messages, email. I do everything from my phone. Um,
Any CRM? Do you use a
I
CRM?
use I well, so I use Follow Up Boss, but I just hired a company to create all my plans in there because I'm not super savvy with it yet. It's fairly new for me, so I haven't really gotten that much into it, and my ADD is like, I don't want to learn that today. So
Yeah.
I had this company come in and do all the plans, and now I have a meeting with them coming up to get them all set up and running. But so yeah, so I use Follow Up Boss. I use the Real Reason desktop version app, things like that. Um, and that's, I mean, pretty much it. I use Dropbox. I know people are going to say that's so antiquated and old, but I use Dropbox, and that's how I kind of keep all my files organized with PDFs of all my deals. So I keep that organized, and that's how my TC gets in all my stuff too. But I keep everything pretty organized that way.
Okay. How about Canva? Do you use any Canva to do like your social media?
Look at you, just telling me all the things. Yes, Canva. I use Canva for everything. All my postcards are done in Canva, my websites, landing pages, things like that. Everything's in Canva.
Okay, awesome. And any tools that you use to send out the postcards or any website specifically?
So I use printrunner.com to print all my pieces. And then the postal service, I use Every Door Direct Mail. So I do it that way. Like I said, I do host a class once a month. It's usually the third Friday of every month. And it's at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And that goes through the whole process of creating the postcard to, printing it, to how to mail it and how to get all that stuff organized.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, that'd be really great. Not a lot of agents do direct mail, and the ones that do, I think they're still trying to figure it out. So that would be awesome to
Well, and
take in
the problem
class.
with direct mail is, agents lose patience, right? Because it's not an immediate, like instant gratification sort of tool. And I think there's got to be another piece to it that is alongside it. So, like, you send the mailers, that's great, but like, where else are they seeing you? Are they seeing you on a billboard? Are you hosting a neighborhood event? Are you having a table at a local event or whatever? What else are you doing to put your name out there besides just the postcards?
Yes, that makes total sense. That makes total sense. So, shifting gears a little bit, this is advice for new agents. So, what advice would you give to somebody that's just starting out?
Um, get a mentor or join a team where you're going to learn all the things, because what you learn in class is not how the real world works. And it's a tough business to enter and to stay. And so in order for you to thrive, you need to depend on other agents. So, like, having a mentality of, oh, these agents are all my enemy is not the case. Like, you need to collaborate with other agents and be present with other agents and learn from other people. And that would be my advice, is just take every little nugget from whatever agent you can and just store it in your brain forever. Like, never forget one of the agents I met when I first became an agent. He said to me, "Look at every single person you meet as $5,000." And I was like, "Wow, that's a good mentality, right?" And so over time, you just start to realize, like, okay, like, you don't know where your next deal's coming from, so treat this person nice, or get to know that person, or whatever the case is. So just don't discount any opportunities to meet new people.
That makes total sense. And that's a really good point you made. It's a tough business to enter and it's a tough business to stay in because it's so true. The failure rate in this industry is huge and not many people talk about it.
Yeah.
I think it's 87%. So
I mean, think about it. The agents that are producing is like what, the top 1%
Yeah,
out
yeah.
of millions of agents. So, in order to make an actual like living, you gotta have be the grind, you have to be out there doing all the things. Like I can't tell you how many times people are like, oh, you're always working on the weekends. Oh, you're always doing this at night. And it's like, listen, I do what I gotta do, and I'm not saying don't have boundaries, because of course you need to have some sort of boundary, but um I because I mean, my lifestyle is probably much different than many others. Like I don't have kids, I'm not married. So it's like, okay, I have the availability and the flexibility to accommodate maybe times that other people don't. But that's a sacrifice that I'm making to be able to, do what I do.
Yes, yes, that makes total sense. So an agent that's just coming in, say they just get started, they're willing to do the work, they're willing to do the grind. Where should they focus their efforts? Should they try to get on the phone and start calling leads? Should they door knock? Should they just start sending out mailers? What's your thoughts on that?
I would say it depends what you're comfortable with, because again, if something you're not comfortable with, you're not going to do it. So find what you're good at and what you are comfortable with and just be consistent with it. I don't care if it's social media, if it's geo farming, if you have the budget for it, because that's the other thing, it costs money.
Yes.
If you're okay making phone calls, then make the phone calls, but dedicate yourself and be consistent, because if you're not consistent, nothing matters. It doesn't matter what marketing tool you're using. If you're not consistent, it's not going to work. Um, so that would be my advice, like if you're going to be doing social media, go into different properties, do the video tours, start getting yourself out there. And I hate to say it like this, but like look busy, you know.
Yeah.
I used to say fake it till you make it, and go from there. Ask an agent if you can shadow them, like go follow them around for a day, go take videos of the houses that they're showing, or make an agent preview. There's no rule that says you can't preview a house as an agent, so go do an agent preview and do a quick video, and do some polls on Instagram, things like that, to try to get some engagement. um and just be out there meeting people. Like I used to go to different like chamber of commerce events. I used to go to local events and just like meet different people, meet different mortgage brokers, meet different attorneys, and people that you jive with, so that you can build that relationship with them.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what would you say would be some things to avoid for agents?
um don't do what I did. I like I mentioned earlier, like I had a lot of credit card debt when I got into going into this full time. I ended up filing for bankruptcy. And what I want people to know is that, yes, this is an inconsistent income. It's not a salary. You don't have benefits in most cases and things like that. But be mindful of your finances, because you don't want to end up in trouble. And that is where I was. And thankfully, I was able to keep my house, keep my car, and I was able to rebound relatively quickly. And, I was able to, I bought a flip, I bought another house, I bought my building, all within, 7 years of my bankruptcy. But I had to be creative, and it cost me a little bit more money because I'm paying higher interest rates and things like that for my creative financing options. So just, don't go out and buy the BMW. People do not care. Like, yes, as you grow and you buy a nicer car, that's fine, that's great, but people really do not care. So don't make yourself go into debt to try to impress people.
That's an awesome point. And it's so true. They really don't care. I've had everything from Nissan Altimas all the way
Yeah,
to Mercedes and Lexus and all that stuff. And they don't care as long as you're doing a great job. That's what they
right.
care about. And I'm sure there's that, 5% of people that do care. They're like, oh, that agent has a better car, but it's super rare. It's not common.
And
It's
I,
not
and
common.
I can play the other end of the argument, is that, like for example, I closed on a home last week that was a mobile home, right? And to that person, it's like, oh, she's making all this money. You know what I mean? So it
Mhm.
just depends who you're dealing with, and it doesn't make or break who you are, right? It's just don't go into debt trying to impress other people. That would be my one thing to avoid.
Yes, that's a great tip. That's a great, great tip. And I see so many people doing it, and it's a really bad road to go down. So that's awesome, Sarah. Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Really great tips. And before we wrap up, any final things you want to say before we get going?
Oh, I appreciate you having me and hearing my story. And if I can help any agents in any way, please let me know. I'm happy to help and collaborate as as much as I can. So if you need me, my contact info, you can just follow me on Instagram at Sara Tufano Homes.
Perfect. And I'll leave that in the description below on YouTube too. So if you want to connect with Sarah, feel free to reach out. That's great. All right, Sarah. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming on, and I'll talk to you soon.
You got it. Thanks.
Thank you for watching the Empire of Real Estate YouTube channel. On this channel, we talk about real estate and entrepreneurship. So if you like that kind of content and you haven't subscribed yet, smash the like button and subscribe. And before we go, there isn't a video over here that we think you'll like, so be sure to check that out as well. Thanks so much for tuning in, and you have a great day.